Please listen carefully.
Come to Daddy is written by Kiwi filmmaker Ant Timspon, and it stars Elijah Wood and Stephen McHattie. After receiving a letter from his father imploring him to come and meet him, Norval, played by Elijah Wood, steps off a bus and proceeds to head to this remote cabin in the Pacific Northwest, in this beautiful location overlooking the ocean, to meet the men that abandoned him and his mother when he was 5 years old. As he gets there, he knocks on the door, and who opens it but his father, played by Stephen McHattie, the legendary Canadian actor. Now, in the Art of Self-Defense review, I already mentioned how in this Fantasia, there had been this recurring theme of masculinity running throughout a lot of the films that I'd been seeing. And this thematic element and description perfectly works within the context of this film as well. You have Elijah Wood playing this kind of e-boy with these, like, kind of crazy outfits and this weird Skrillex haircut, contrasting with Stephen McHattie, who's kind of this old school, you know, hard-edged, more working class, absolutely drunk all the time, who keeps calling Elijah Wood a pussy and a woman.
Just so you know, if you want to impress me, I like fight stories.
And so clearly this idea of these different facets of masculinity that are different both in terms of perception but also generational come into play in a really interesting way, especially considering where the film ends up in the second half of the film. I think one of the great strengths of genre filmmaking is in its way to tackle a subject that's both very personal and very universal, but in a way that's kind of outside of what you would see in just a regular drama or film. So in this case, you have the relationship between father and son, which, you know, is a classic in cinema and in just literature and art in general, but through this lens of, you know, dark comedy, extreme violence, and complete absurdity. During the Q&A, Ant Timspon talked about how he was inspired by the real death of his father, and especially in the way that his friends sort of talked about him in a way that it felt like he was a completely different person to the man he knew as his father, and that was the jumping off point for this kind of crazy, extreme story. And for a first film, I think the film has just incredible qualities and is an fantastic achievement across the board in the acting, in the direction, in the wonderful cinematography by Daniel Katz. The film is able to alternate really effortlessly between comedy and hyper-violence and Hitchcockian thriller and gore in a way that reminded me of Jeremy Saulnier's Blue Ruins. So if you really like that film, then for sure I think that Come to Daddy is going to be right up your alley. I think it's an extraordinary first film by a veteran filmmaker, if that makes any sense, because Timspon, this is his first film as a director, but he has produced a lot of genre films up to this point that have actually played Fantasia, like Turbo Kid, The Greasy Strangler, Deathgasm, and in a way it's kind of sad that he's waited this long, but in a way that's also maybe why this film feels so accomplished and why you feel like you are in the hands of such a competent filmmaker. As of this recording, I'm about a little over 20 films in to this year's Fantasia, and I've got about still a week and maybe about 10 to 12 films left to go, but as of right now, this is my favorite film of the festival so far, and is just, in my opinion, a tremendous accomplishment. I really can't wait to see what Ant Timspon does next. So as always, thanks very much for watching the video. Please be sure to hit the like button if you like the review, subscribe if you're new, and until next time, see ya!